All right. I think we're officially all good. Welcome back to Upfront, everyone. I'm your host today, filling in for Isabel. Today we are joined by Jonathan, and then
Ame Maestas.
Abe, yeah. So we did a poetry contest, and we really loved the work that you did, that you submitted. And we kind of wanted you to read your main piece that we ended up deciding was one of the pieces we liked. So if you mind, do you want to read it for us?
Rain pours on the earth below, and the plant shakes and bends. Life goes on, and the plant has no control, but it chooses to let its roots extend. It stays rooted in the ground. It doesn't know what it will become, which it realizes profound. It only knows where it's from, whether it becomes a plum tree or if it becomes a gladiolus flower. Maybe one day it will turn into tea. But for now it is young, bitter, and sour. It has existed, but now it lives. As the stem and small leaves peek out of the soil, and it looks within and forgives. After the long period of inner turmoil, it is learning and adapting as it grows out of soil and into the world, and feels the surrounding vegetation interacting. Leaves, branches, and stems becoming rolled. The rain is rough, but the plant is growing in length. It has been through enough, and that has given it strength. The rain provides water which drowns, and yet it offers water which is from the heavens and comes down, and in doing so, it has provided the plant growth.
All right, thank you. So, just curious what this poem means to you. What was the process? How did it come to you?
So, it's kind of interesting because about a year ago, I saw this thing where it was like I think it was like 20 poems every day. Like you do like a poem each day for 20 days straight.
Oh, yeah. People do that because it's April is National Poetry Month. Yeah. And so I know people that are like, every day this month, I'm going to write something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a weird time of my life because I was like definitely going through a lot. And in the beginning, I was like, this is kind of dumb. I don't even really like poetry. Because I definitely used to be like, I want to be a creative writer, but I was like a person who used to kind of not like poetry that much. Mm-hmm. And then I think this was one of the poems that was towards the end, I think my skills were definitely improving. And I was like definitely seeing like,
yeah, funny how that happens, right? If you do anything 20 days in a row, you'll probably get better at it, right?
Yeah. And like I just kind of like appreciated it a lot more. Mm-hmm. I think in the beginning I was definitely like, I don't know what I should write a poem about, mm-hmm. or where I'm going with this, but I started to get more and more inspired. Mm-hmm. And this definitely was something that was like important to me because it was like a time in my life where I was like super depressed. Right. And like one of the things that made me a lot happier, I guess, was looking outside and like just like seeing that there's plant life.
Yeah.
Because you see the plants and it's so funny because it's so small, like birds, squirrels, like grass, like, but you like find beauty in like all these really small things. And this poem is about like growing from your trauma, even though you don't really know where you're going in life, like you have to mm-hmm. keep moving on.
Yeah, I felt like it was like a really tight metaphor that doesn't necessarily, it can like speak to a lot of different experiences. Like it kind of just speaks to growth in general. So like the trauma that like maybe you personally are thinking about might be like different for somebody else. Or I see the plant as like it's like a young plant, right? It's a young plant that's so young it doesn't even know what the flower is going to be yet. But that's also still gone through something. A plant goes through a lot, like just in that seed, yeah, to the point where like you start to actually see something above the ground. Like there's a long kind of process there. So I think it's a really tight metaphor, and that's why, like I wanted this one to be the winner, I guess. This was my top one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's mm-hmm. It's one that touched me as well. I think a lot of people go through stuff and they take a look back at that kind of stuff, and they kind of grow off of it. They learn what happened, why it happened, and they kind of just go through that process of growing, with it. So
Yeah.
this is definitely one that I liked, and like you said, I definitely wanted this one to be the winner for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a really great piece, and we know you had a few other poems that we kind of wanted to talk about here.
Yeah, so you've got one interwoven, you've got Give Me Hell. Some of those seemed like a little bit more like introspective, like this is maybe what your mind sounds like
Yeah.
when you're alone. Can you speak to your process on those?
So those were like, I feel like I should first off just address that those ones were like a little bit edgier of the three that I submitted. I like wanted to go for the ones I felt was like strongest in my writing abilities, I guess. And it was like funny because I was like debating between 4 and like Life Above Ground. I was like, oh, this has to go. And the other two, I was like, which ones? Which of these 3? And I ended up choosing Interwoven and Give Me Hell. And Interwoven is like this poem that's like, you want to like be positive. You want to write positive things. And like, then you like, there's like a point in the poem where you're like, all right, and then my fingers touch the keyboard and it just says like I want to die, and you're like I don't want to, but for some reason it's easier to write poetry about like really like depressing things.
Yeah.
And I hate that, because like I want to be a positive person and I want to be optimistic.
Where do you think that comes from? Like, what voice is saying you have to be positive? Yeah. Is that more just like
I guess not
the way that we have to
be,
present ourselves, like in most situations in society, like in school and at a job and just with
a little bit
friends
of that.
And family, like you need to be like sort of I show my upbeat side, right? But I think the cool thing about poetry is it can contain, actually it's one of the few places that can contain that other voice, right? I just want to die voice, right? You can't just go out there and yell it in the hallway. You'll probably be somebody will take you away somewhere. I don't know, but to yourself on the page, and then in a way it's out there a little bit more than when it's just trapped inside your own head. And does that feel like a therapeutic thing for you when that happens?
Yeah, I think that like I kind of do want to like say though, like it's not necessarily like I have to be positive. It's just like, know, if you're negative all the time, know, that's not super healthy, like it is like important to acknowledge that what you're going through is hard. It is important to look at negative things in the world and like approach them with, compassion and rationality. But it's also important that you try and look for the positive, because it's like hard to like keep living, if you just are constantly getting bombarded by all these negative things.
Yeah.
But like that's just like kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. It's complex. I mean, we have both of those sides to us, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people say this, but like, when you kind of have these negative thoughts, it's best to like write them down in a journal or something like that. But do you feel like with poetry, do you feel like maybe that's your way of writing them down and expressing yourself?
A little bit. It's kind of weird because I won't lie, this semester I've been like slacking, when it comes to like writing because I want to write. It's mostly been me like writing because it's an assignment, I'm not in like any of those sorts of creative classes, I guess. But
have you been in the past?
Not yet.
Oh, I
will be in the future.
Okay, yeah.
So, I'm excited for that.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I just really wish, like, I think I took a lot of classes this semester, though, so, like, I didn't have much time to write because I wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a tough thing for writers. When you find the time and the energy, the inspiration. I find it personally hard, like, teaching in the middle of the semester, like, it's very hard to get any creative production out. But the cool thing about working at a school is you've got like the great breaks. You get to catch your breath in the summer and everything, right? So maybe like you're kind of like feeling like swamped and not as creative right now, but then like maybe a couple
Well,
weeks
it's
into
like
May, it
weird
starts
that
to
you
kick
say
back
that.
in, right?
Because I wouldn't even say like I don't feel creative. It's like
Yeah.
because I've been painting like crazy
okay.
like this semester,
Yeah.
but like poetry or creative writing in general, oh, like I can't do it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
been very hard to find that motivation. I think that like that's something I look forward to in like taking a creative writing class too is like that because there's due dates, I'm like, oh, I have to do it now. Like I
Yeah,
have
that
to. And
helps
like,
you. Yeah.
like I'm like a person where it's like if you give me a due date, I'll do the thing and I'll do it like the day it's assigned or like within a week. But if you like if you don't give me like a due date, I don't really have the motivation anymore. I think it's like that thing of like people are relying on me. So I'm like, oh, I have to get this done now.
Right.
So, is this like poetry? Is this something that you just recently started getting into, or has this been something you've been doing in the past?
Well, as I kind of said earlier, was I used to be a person who like really hated poetry because I thought
Yeah.
that it was like the type of art where it was like, oh well, you put a dot on like a canvas and call it art. And now I'm like, actually that's like so unfair.
Yeah,
I used to
yeah.
like hate on it because it was like there's no rules to it, I guess. So like there's no right or wrong, and like that's like why I hated it because it was like I could never be like, oh, this is good or this is bad. But now I think that like when you go through hard times, like poetry actually is like really helpful because emotions are super complicated. And like I think that like one of the best ways you can kind of like document them is through like these like metaphors and similes and expressions that just like are just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting that you're talking about like the anything goes quality of poetry
Yeah.
was kind of what turned you off about it. And in the last podcast with the other poet, we were talking about how sometimes it seems like poetry is like so far above our heads, like, or that it's this really complex thing that only some master genius understands. And then that
kinda hate
turns off
that.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it seems like those are kind of like opposite ideas, like anything goes or like only the master can do it. But somewhere in the middle, there's something like more inclusive. And I'm a big like proponent of like everybody can do poetry,
Yes. Yeah.
doesn't have to
Ratatouille.
be- exactly. That is the Ratatouille philosophy, right? Anyone
Yeah.
can cook. Don't believe that critic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would agree with most of that stuff. And then the other poem that you wrote, the Give Me Hell one,
Oh god.
it was definitely one that it was kind of hard to wrap my head around. And
Okay, that's fair.
yeah, for me, I mean, personally, I don't think it was my favorite, but I mean, I'm not gonna like all of the pieces that I ever read, and it's always good to have like an honest opinion about it, and that was kind of just my honest opinion. It was hard to wrap my head around it, so kind of tell me like what was your intent with that, or like
So like that one, Give Me Hell, was a little bit more about it was sort of like I like think I had like this like random inspiration where I was just thinking about how in a lot of media you'll kind of see like this really weird metaphor about how like there's like mental illness and then there's like the devil and it's kind of ridiculous. But I think the most important line in there is like the one that's basically like, well, if my life is hell, then does that make me the devil? And it's just like the feeling like there is something wrong with you or you are evil because you're neurodivergent, which is like not true at all, but like that's like how it feels sometimes, and you feel like you're like, oh my god, like people really don't understand me, so like you just kind of turn yourself into something that you're not, I guess. And that's just like what it kind of meant to me when I was writing it.
Yeah, I suppose it's worth mentioning because our process was that our whole team looked at all the poets and we ranked them in the order that we personally like responded to best. And so you'll have some person giving it the highest score and some person giving it the lowest. And like it just goes to show you, like I wish every poet could kind of like see what the editing room looks like sometime or participate in that, because it really shows you that personal taste has so much to do with it. So if you ever submit to somewhere and you get like rejected or whatever, that doesn't mean that like, that just means maybe the majority rejected, but you didn't know if one person in that room, it was the best piece that they had read. Yeah. So, maybe another group of 6 people would have picked completely different things. Maybe the devil would have been their favorite.
Yeah, maybe would have been their favorite. That's for sure. Yeah, the whole rejection stories, I see that a lot. But just because you get rejected, no matter where you are at life, doesn't mean, you keep on going forward. Just don't ever really let that stop you. I think that's the big thing.
Well, we draw conclusions about what we think that rejection was all about when we don't even know the whole story behind it. We don't know what's happening in that room.
Yeah, I think with the whole rejection thing, it's like, when you do take a look back at that, it's almost like your life above ground. You grow off of it, and you keep on growing off of it. So
I think that it's also, I kind of just realized this too, like, not like I didn't know this, I like how I like say that I like don't know a thing about my own poem. No, what I mean to say is like, I do think it's interesting, or like, looking back, that I did name this poem Life Above Ground because it was not only about like a plant that's growing above the soil, but it's also just like, hey, like, don't take life for granted.
Right.
It's precious, like every sunset, every bird, every smile like means something. And like, just be happy you're above ground. Like, it's definitely tough sometimes, and that's fair, but like, you'll get through it.
Yeah, that's a really wise point of view.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, it's particularly like relevant to like people the age of most of our students at this campus. I mean, I think a lot of people probably are feeling like that, that been through a lot here, but like there's so much still left to go, and trying to find that, accepting that's a growth process. Yeah.
I think, I look around a lot and I see some people with their heads down, and I feel that's the case. Maybe they are going through a lot, and college, it's definitely a big thing, because this is where you're really trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and where you want to go with it. And I think about it too on a daily basis, where I'll be in a classroom and next thing you know, I'm like, well, I just took a business class. Is this truly, did I like it? Is this what I want to go for? And all that kind of other stuff. And then I have those days where I'm saying, maybe I want to try this out, or this and this. So it really is just a whole growing process.
My favorite lines in there are like, it doesn't know if it's a plum or a gladiola or tea, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't know what it is yet.
Yeah, it doesn't know what it will become.
Right.
I think everyone has to really trust the process.
Yeah,
and
I mean, this culture kind of teaches like you should always know exactly.
God.
Don't
Exactly.
never be in a state of not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's so real to be in a state of not knowing.
And I feel like everyone says that, and it always brings me back to like elementary school and even like first grade, where at that point in age you have a paper and you write down, oh, what do I want to be when I grow up, And it's like, well, these kids,
I want you to be everything. Like, you cannot tell me, like, you can't ask me that question. When I was a kid, I wanted to be everything.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's so ridiculous.
And I remember I had a kid in my elementary class, and he didn't write anything because he just didn't know what he wanted to be. And I remember the teacher was kind of like, no, well, you got to have like like Jimmy over here, he was talking, he wants to be a fire guy with the fireman and stuff like that, and he didn't have anything. But it's just because they're so young. So it really, everyone grows, and you have to trust the process, and you'll find out what you like, and then you go for it. And
it's okay to be uncertain.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
It's okay to be beaten down. It's okay. Yeah,
definitely is. So
they're, like, literally, like, no one knows what they're doing. Like, that's the beauty of college. I look around and like everyone's like, I actually don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my god, same.
Oh well, but there's so many people in the adult world too that don't know what they're doing, and then just pretend.
Back when I was like working retail,
Yeah.
like I'd be like best friends with like 40-year-old people who are like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then I'd also be best friends with like
Yeah.
all these like teens who are like, I don't know what I want to do yet. And it's just like no
Right.
one in this world knows what they're doing. Okay.
Right, right.
And if you say you do, like you're lying, or you have a really good plan. Maybe I'm assuming
Yeah.
things.
I mean,
but,
yeah, I feel
I hope the best for you.
yeah, I feel like some people, they might have like a very good plan set out and everything, which is it's good for them, but for a lot of us they don't. So it just
And to bring it back to the plant metaphor, plants are in constant growth.
Yeah.
always. Yeah.
They don't really stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really did, enjoy, all three of these. Obviously the Give Me Hell one was hard to wrap around, but
That's fair.
it is how it is. The other thing I wanted to kind of say was, do you have any other pieces maybe you're working on, or if you were to, make your next poem, what would you want to write about?
I think it's kind of like hard to say. Because I feel like a lot of these are like just like me reflecting. So I'd probably have to do something with that. I like to do like a lot where I will take one thing and make a metaphor out of it. So I think if I had to do another one, actually, I'd probably do it based off of like water, because there was definitely a time of my life, and it's like weird because like the water dreams are coming back, because I used to have like a lot of water related dreams.
Like what kind of things? Like you're
Like-
drowning, or
A little bit. It kind of depends. Like
Yeah.
and like I feel like depending on like
Yeah.
the amount of water that was there, or where it was in the dream, like it was like definitely like I could see like how it was impacting my mental health, or like where my
Yeah.
mental health was at the time.
So you think those
So-
dreams, you think they were kind of real, like they were trying to tell you something? Is that what you're?
I like I
What
like to
is
like
the-
look at my
What is the
dreams.
common interpretation of water in a dream?
I don't know what
Yeah.
that depends on like what you think of it.
Right.
I personally, I think the ocean is terrifying, so I think that like the ocean's scary, man.
Right. So
So
it's the fear,
I
yeah.
think that for me, like
Yeah,
if water comes up in a dream, I'm like, that's not good.
Right.
I think dreams, they tell a lot, and water, it could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, a more terrifying kind of thing when you're drowning. Maybe definitely not the best of like what it's trying to tell you in life, but in other terms, like if you've got like koi fish and water and
Yeah.
other stuff like that,
Yeah,
it's,
maybe it's soothing.
it's
yeah.
soothing
It
stuff
depends
like
on
that.
the
It
person.
depends.
Like that's why I always think. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's why I don't like dream interpretation books, because I think that depends on the person. It's a cultural thing. It's a personal thing. And like I do draw a lot of like inspiration from my dreams. I think I like would love to write a book on my dreams because they're weird, but I don't know.
Would you ever want to publish any of these?
Well, there was like a period of time where I did have like 20 different poems all in one book, and then I had it like copyrighted, and then I like published it on Amazon, and then I took it off because I was like, I wanted to add on more to the book, because like here's like the fun thing about poetry is you have to write like 100 poems to like sell like $12. Like you have to write like a lot of poems, and like 20 poems is like you're not going to get much money out of that.
Well, no poet's really in it for the money.
Me apparently.
Sometimes there's just a great feeling of like,
I'm not a poet at heart.
this thing is complete, and,
Yeah.
and the final step is putting it out there, and then whatever happens after that is out of my hands, and it's fine. But there's a satisfaction to just feeling like, okay, that project.
I think
is
I'd
complete.
like to, but it's like
Yeah.
because I was working with like a publishing company at the time, and then they just like weren't good, so like I kind of withdrew from them. And it was like a very long battle. It sucked, and like the self-publishing process is such a pain that I find myself just being like, I don't want to publish it, and like I don't know, I should definitely reach out to like publishing companies or something, but again, busy with school.
Yeah. So, what's your goal for FRCC in school?
So It's kind of funny because people keep telling me I don't have to like make up my mind yet, but I took like classes in high school, and then I took a lot of classes this year, or like this semester. So like I'm like rapidly approaching like transferring out of Front Range.
Nice. Any idea where you want to go?
No. I would like to go into creative writing, but you know, like if life, you know, pushed me in another direction in like the writing sort of field, I'd be okay with that, you know.
Right.
I've been told like I can write pretty good like nonfiction, you know, but it's not something I want to do.
That's my background. My degrees are in creative writing. And you know, I just followed it because it was my passion, and I had supportive people that were like, follow your passion, follow your bliss, and all that stuff. And then you start to realize, whoa, what can I actually practically do with this?
Yeah.
But another way, that's how I got my job here. You know,
Yeah.
I just got a promotion this week. So like
congrats.
you never know like where it's gonna lead. You don't have to know that the end of the road to like I do kind of believe follow what's, you know, you feel passionate about, and it will lead to something good, although you might not know what that is.
Exactly, like we were saying, you know, it's good not to, you know, have a full clear idea of what is going to come in front of you. So it's fine to not know that kind of stuff, and you know, again, what you're passionate about, take it, and you
People
never know.
keep telling me I should be like become a teacher or a professor, and I'm just like, that's like it's weird. It's weird.
I had no intention of teaching.
Yeah.
Like the day I graduated, I was like, I'm never gonna go step foot in a school again.
Yeah.
But then it was about 9 years later, after delivering pizzas and driving a taxi and like doing all these things I thought would be good like writer experience jobs.
No, I know
and
what you
then
mean.
it was like, you know what, that day job at the school doesn't sound so bad anymore. And then I like started doing it, and I found that I really love it. So, you know, that wasn't until my like 30s that I really knew like, okay, this is probably what my career is going to be, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because everything's worked out now.
Yeah. So there you go. I think that really wraps it up for this episode of Upfront here for the poetry contest. Thank you again for joining us today. Like I said, we really loved your work here. So
and those pieces should be up on the site by today or soon, right?
yeah, they should be published for you guys here to go ahead and read these. Like, you know, Life Above Ground and all that kind of stuff. Read that. So thank you again for being on this podcast.
Thanks for selecting me. That means a lot to me. I really want to go into this field.
Use that to motivate you to and to support to make your dreams come true.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.